Last night's Draw Muhammad contest in Texas didn't just draw Muhammad, it drew two Islamists who drew return fire.
Both of them had assault rifles, came around the back of the car and started shooting at the police car. The police officer in that car began returning fire and struck both men, taking them down.
The dudes ended up as chalk outlines, or what Texans call etchings. You know you're down south when even the art shows come holstered. Every gallery is a shooting gallery, thankfully. It's a contrast between to Charlie Hebdo, whose editors died helplessly before their heathens. Terrorists in Texas, however, found a far deadlier lead than what's inside your basic pencil. They were dispatched, but the idiocy of the press still stands. Times reporter Rukmini Kalamaki tweets, "Free speech aside, why would anyone do something as provocative as hosting a Muhammad drawing contest?" Well, the answer's in the question. And you'd expect a reporter whose beat is Islamic extremism would get it. The First Amendment means zilch if it only protects hello and have a nice day. Protecting safe speech is like protecting an empty safe. And also, when you begin your take on free speech with free speech aside, you kind of lose the point. But hey, maybe they were asking for it.
No one would ever dispute the right for people to have freedom of speech, especially in this country. It is a constitutional right. But are questions being asked in some ways, were they asking for some kind of attack? Not that obviously anyone deserved it, but was there some kind of invitation for an attack, if you like? There's
always that but. This is where we are. Remember, the attacks on our Libyan outposts were blamed on a film by our own government, including Hillary. Meanwhile, 6 writers dropped out of the Penn American Center Gala protesting a Freedom of Expression award that was going to be given to Charlie Hebdo. So brave, these creeps who got rich off freedom of speech now think they can decide what speech is. If your faith is easily threatened by a cartoon, that's a big problem. But if you're a journalist and don't get the contest, then it's you who's the real cartoon. So, Andrea, we've said this before, when people look at events like these and they go, well, they look at the history of provocation, it's almost like they're saying, she asked for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what a lot of the journalists and the one that you just played, that's what they were seemingly saying.
Yeah.
And we've heard before, too, Greg, the president stand in front of the UN and say the future does not belong to those who slander the prophet Muhammad. He also had a very similar response during the French attack on Charlie Hebdo. So, yeah, you see blame going around in different places against the people who I think a lot of people in the media think shouldn't be doing this, that they're provoking, and on some level, they asked for it. But just to show you how great freedom of speech is in this country, we allow ISIS to have Twitter accounts. And they actually telegraphed these terrorists that they were going to be doing this on social media, and we allowed it. Now, we should have caught it, but we allow them to do that because freedom of speech in our country.
Exactly.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Eric, is it provocation, or is it actually educating people on why speech matters?
It's clearly educating people on why speech matters. It's also a case study on what happens when you try and do that. You have some crazy wackos coming out of the world. Andrea points out the social media. These guys not only said that they called it hashtag Texas attack, and then they said, may Allah accept us as mujahideen. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe he did. Maybe your 72 versions, you're enjoying them right now. Thank God for the Garland, Texas Police Department, who saw it happening and took him down fast. If you saw the bullet-riddled car that they stepped out of, you know that the two things were in play: the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, right there, right?
Yeah.
So clearly it worked out in the right way. However, James Comey, I believe it was, who said we have open investigations going on in 50 different states right now. I don't know if this keeps happening. Maybe it won't end this way. Hopefully it does, though.
Juan, Eric pointed out it was like an amendment sandwich. They walked right into it. Why does the media see the cartoons as more of a threat than the actual violent terror? It seems that they spend more of their coverage, at least I noticed, more of their coverage looking at the background of the people putting on this event rather than the background of the people that attacked them.
Well, first, let me just say there's no way to ignore the background of the people who set up the event. This woman, Pamela Geller, who set it up, is someone who is a provocateur. I don't think there's any question about it. I don't think that's a matter of, me saying it or anybody on the table saying it. That's what she is. She has an ad that I see sometimes when I'm coming into Fox on the buses in New York City that says basically killing Jews as worship draws us to Allah. I mean, that's pretty offensive.
She's quoting something.
Something, yeah.
Yes.
But putting that on the buses in New York City, because what she wants to do is make it clear what these Islamists are up to.
She's provocative, but she's correct on a lot of things. She makes a lot of good points.
Look, this is the odd part for me. I mean, you're talking to someone here who has been fired for speaking out, and punished by people who were activists in the Muslim community who put pressure on NPR to fire me. But I'm telling you, I understand why, for example, I was struck when the Charlie Hebdo incident happened that the New York Times refused to publish the cartoon. And I want to know, what's this cartoon that caused these people to be attacked, right? And so my newspapers don't cover it. Washington Post had a little thing. You know, Wall Street Journal didn't put it in there until the end.
And basically that means that radical Islam succeeds because people are terrified.
Well, they say that it's provocative and juvenile. And, you know, look, I lived through Piss Christ, and I am a very strong Christian. But I got to tell you, I don't remember being violent over it.
Also, I mean, Book of Mormon is considered one of the greatest works of musical comedy. And there are other things that involved using elephant dung with the Virgin Mary. Yeah. These things are all considered art, KG.
Not my kind of art, and I did not enjoy the evening at Book of Mormon. But many people do. Just tell it it's not my kind of cup of tea. But anyway, so what I think about this is, yes, Pamela Geller is making a point, but she's not the problem. In fact, what she's pointing out has been accurate and is living out right in front of our very eyes on TV. The fact that they had this cartoon contest doesn't give radical Islamists and jihadists license to kill and come in and terrorize Americans. I mean, these are the principles that this country was founded on, about liberty and freedom of speech. And they got today the other one I love, Justice Texas style. Drop them like they're hot. There you go.
Andrea,
a pistol against AK-47.
This made me think, are events like these helpful by drawing out the extremists? They're like a bug lamp. You know, it's like when the police would send like letters to outstanding warrants saying you want a boat. And then they would all show up at a hotel, and then they would get arrested. Is that kind of how this works? You have these things once in a while, then the crazies come out.
Like terrorist flypaper.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Although who would volunteer to do the next cartoon event?
That's true.
You're the bait, by the way.
Well,
just sit there and look
snipers.
And look pretty. We got this covered.
We get the guy from To Catch a Predator.
Yeah.
That guy. The guy who was always in the kitchen.
Yeah, but didn't he have a problem himself?
I don't know.
Something.
Well, you pointed out in your monologue, I mean, it also draws attention to when people come out and they say, people who do this are provocative. Geller's provocative. You sit back and you go, wait a minute, these people just blew people, just gunned them down and murdered people. And then you think about all the beheading videos. Who really are the provocateurs?
Yes.
I mean, is it really the ones who did the Mohammed cartoon, or is it the people that are beheading Americans and journalists?
Here's the other point of view.
Shouldn't that be the outrage?
Well, here's the other point of view. Southern Poverty Law Center designates Geller's group as a hate group in the United States because they are so aggressive in condemning the Muslim community. Now, I happen to agree with you, as I said earlier. I don't think that you have any backstep, they're shades of gray, like Gary Trudeau, the guy who does Doonesbury. He was in this game, too. Yeah. This was kind of, Charlie Hebdo was kind of provocative. I agree with you. I thought that was embarrassing. Why would Gary Trudeau, who it seems to me should be a champion of journalistic liberty, he's on the Sunday comic page with a political message every week. I enjoy it, but I'm going to tell you, the idea that he would then turn and say, you can't say what you want to say? How ridiculous.
Chicken Little.
Check it out.
Yeah. Well, it's like Marilyn Manson, who spent decades making fun of Christians, burning the Bible, but when it came to Islam, he says, well, I'm going to stay away from that. It's the ultimate cowardice.
And then they win,
as
you point out.
And let me just make one last journalistic point about this.
You know, to put his picture up.
Yes.
He's always tricking me. You're a tricky man. Anyway, I just want to make one journalistic point, which is that when you think about the Seattle cartoonist Molly Nauer still in hiding.
I know.
Still in hiding, an American journalist.
Yeah.
When you stop and think about Theo Van Gogh being killed, again, it seems to me that we have to be very clear that you can practice journalism in this country, and even if she is a provocateur, to your point, they shouldn't be there with guns trying to kill people. I don't see that people are trying to kill the KKK. They're provocateurs. Does it bother
you then, Juan, when you hear the White House conflate other religions with Islam?
What do you mean?
Like the president blamed Christians at the prayer breakfast and bring up the Crusades and...
No, I think he's trying to say that, look, we've all had moments, but this is a moment right now, today, where radical Islam is a threat to world peace, in my opinion.
Yeah. Eric, quickly, this guy was Elton Simpson. They call him a former terror suspect.
Right. And for some reason, no, but he was on the terror watch list. He in 2009, they said he wanted to travel to Somalia to become a terrorist, to engage in violent jihad. I don't know how he becomes former. He's current.
Yeah.
And by the way, his roommate also, the other shooter ended up being his roommate. They just released that.
There's a sitcom.
Birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Bosom buddies.
One question before I go. The media persistently asks Republicans about questions of sexual orientation. Why don't they do this with Hillary about stuff like this, about Muslim intolerance and things like what's her stand on this now? Since we know her stand on Libya, is she going to blame? What is she going to blame?
Yeah, well, she's never going to answer a question like that. She's going to sidestep because that would just get her in political trouble. So she's going to avoid it. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I think it goes back to what you said earlier. I know you got to go, but don't you think, that liberals and Democrats are going to say, oh, what about Geller?
Yeah.
And I just think, hey, don't get distracted here. You got to support journalistic independence and truth-telling in this country.
Amen.